Welcome back to the 21st episode of the Dear Young Men podcast. In today's episode, we are going to talk about what to do when you get knocked down and you just don't feel like you can get back up on Dear Young Men. The Dear Young Men podcast is a weekly podcast that posts Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk to the 20-year-old version of myself and all the young men out there that need guidance. So I want to start this episode with a story about two friends, Steve and John. Steve, kind of a burnout, kind of a loser. John seems like he's doing everything right, but he looks at Steve's life and he seems by comparison that Steve is living a much easier and more easygoing life. He doesn't really have a standard to live up to. He's not living up to a higher standard. So he sort of just does whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and he just does a thing that at that moment makes him feel good. And John is frustrated because he seems like he's doing all this extra stuff and he's living up to this higher standard, and he just doesn't really understand why he's even doing that. John is constantly stumbles, and he wonders to himself. He begins to wonder, where is God? Why is he not here protecting me? And in his frustration, he sort of comes to a bit of a realization. He realizes that the only reason that he is being tested is because he's the only one worth testing. Why knock down a tower that's already knocked down? Who cares? You want to knock down a tall tower because it's cooler than knocking down a little fort that your kid made, because it's much more impressive for the evil one to knock down something great because of his pride. He wants to tear down the best of us. He wants to pull them down to his level. Because of his pride, he wants to pull us down there. The way the story ends is interesting because it's kind of a two-part ending. So John can stumble and be knocked down, but he can continue to rise and continue to stand and continue to be lifted up. He can continue to carry the cross and bear as much weight as he possibly can. Or he could choose not to, and he could choose to complain and sit there and honestly become a bit of a Steve, and nobody wants to be a Steve. John begins to realize that the more he gets knocked down, the more he stumbles, and the more often he stands up, the heavier burden he's able to carry for him and his family. And so he strives to carry the heaviest burden that he possibly can. This is kind of a weird story because it's not an actual story. It's just whatever. I came up with it. And it's basically what I've been going through. And this is my podcast, so I can talk about whatever I want. And so recently, over the past 3 or 4 months, I felt like John, and I'm like, I feel like I'm doing everything right. And why is all this bad stuff happening to me? And that just goes to show that, like, that's just not how it works. First of all, it's just not how it works. That's not how life works. But also, that's not how God works. And that's not how anything works. Even if it may seem like, I'm doing everything right, why are good things not happening to me? I mean, it's pretty clearly written down as to why that stuff doesn't happen. So here's an idea for you. Winners define themselves by what they made happen. Losers define themselves by what happened to them. And over the past 6 months, we'll say, give or take for me, 3 to 6 months, I was a loser, and I was defining myself by what had happened to me. If you don't know, my basement flooded. And so we had about 4 inches of water in some spots. There's some lower spots that had 4 inches. Some of the higher spots didn't have any water. And it was just frustrating because when water gets into your basement and you have carpet down like my wife and I did, we spent the extra money to do it because we thought it'd be better for the kids. And when you do that, you invite into this thing called mold. And so if the carpet gets wet and you don't rip it out, it's going to mold. And so you have to get rid of it. There's pretty much no option. The other option is you could potentially try to dry the carpet out, but then the pad underneath it is toast. And so we removed it. I did all the work myself. And while removing it, we came to sort of a realization, and we said, this sucks. This house is too much for us to handle. Floods are going to happen. I mean, it happened in my dad's house, and I knew a couple other people that it happened to. It was just a crazy flash flood, and people who had basements just had floods. There's nothing you could do about water coming into your basement because sometimes it's just going to happen. And like, no matter what you do to protect it, it still might just happen. Ultimately, through that, we decided I did all this work, and it was frustrating because while I was doing the work, I had just I was at the 5-week mark of this weight loss journey that I was filming on my main channel, which is my Scott Schroeder channel, which is my name, surprisingly. And on that channel, I was losing weight. I was losing weight consistently, and I was filming each week's progress. And I had actually just recently stopped filming each week, so I'm like, I'm going to come back on day 60 and blow your guys' balls off. This is going to be the most impressive thing you ever see. It's not really what I said, but I said basically I'm going to just go sort of dark about this for 30 days, and I want the improvement to be crazy because each week I was losing a couple pounds and it was great and I felt good and you could tell that I was looking better, but it was like I want to really wow people. And then the basement flood happened, and the second day, the first day was Thursday and then the second day was Friday, and on that Friday we went to Menards, which is like a Home Depot, which is like a hardware store. And I went there to get something to help clean up whatever, to help suck up the water. And I got an 800 calorie pack of Swedish fish because I just wanted to feel better. I was just allowing myself to eat these things because I just wanted it. I wanted to feel good again because I was so frustrated because I couldn't believe that this has happened to me. And I wanted to feel good again. And that was the beginning of sort of the end. I ended up I weigh 180 this morning. I've been fluctuating. I've been losing weight again. I'm actually filming another video because I thought the comeback story would be kind of fun because it's been kind of a rough couple months for me. And through all that, I put on like 10 pounds. I was 187 at my heaviest. I was like 186 this morning, 186.2. I'm way like about 185 right now. Just weight fluctuates. So I'm coming back down, which is good. And I'm going to make a whole video about that. And so I was a loser, though. I was defining myself by what had happened to me and not what I had done. Because if you look back at what I had done, it was pretty impressive. I refinished our basement again, and we ended up selling our house. We noted that, obviously, and we let people know what had happened. And so we sold it for less than we were expecting, but whatever. It is what it is. And through all that, I only ever looked at the bad things that happened to me. I was complaining all the time, and it was always somebody else's fault but my own. And I was a loser, and I know I was a loser. That's the most frustrating thing, is that I was acting like a loser. And then we moved into a new place. Obviously, as you could tell, I got the slab walls. I'm almost done putting them up, and I got this nice little fireplace, which I'm going to get working. And it's going to be the vibiest vibe you've ever seen, but it's a little messy right now. I just wanted to get this filmed and recorded. And if you're listening to the podcast, give it a 5-star and go to my YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Thank you. I never asked that. That's how you make this thing get bigger. And so at the end of the day, basically, I was defining myself as a loser, and I was defining the things that had happened to me and other things that I'd done, because the things I'd done were incredible. I was still posting on my tech channel, which was growing, and it's been growing like crazy. This last month, I made almost $2,000 from it just because of sponsorships and ad revenue and affiliate sales, and I made $2,000. That's more than my mortgage payment by a lot. I'm able to pay for my mortgage and the food that we eat. It's incredible the amount of money that we were able to make from Techno-Eclipse, which is my tech channel. And so I've been focusing on that primarily because that's a big source of revenue. But I miss doing this, and I miss making the Scott Schroeder video, so I'm trying to come back. And I'm not going to define myself anymore by what had happened to me. I'm not going to define myself by having a basement that flooded or having somebody who's on the sex offender list move across the street from us, diagonal across the street from us. I'm not going to define myself by these things that had happened to me, because those aren't me. It's just the things that had happened to me. And I have another story, and whatever, if you don't like these stories, sorry. I wrote them and I came up with them. I'm a good storyteller with video. I feel like with written words, I'm not. Sorry. And it's important to remember that winning life is not all about the cars, the girls, and the money. And so this is what the story is about. A cab driver and a celebrity, both of them are driving. The cab driver is a nobody. He has a wife and a few kids he supports, but spends most of his time working and supporting them. He's not wealthy, but he puts his faith in Jesus Christ. The celebrity is a lukewarm Christian. He goes to church every once in a while, but he's never allowed his Christianity to get in the way of his success, the money, the cars, all the beautiful women he sleeps with. The two of them are in a car talking about the celebrity's most recent movie, when out of nowhere, bang, everything turns white. A man approaches them and wearing white and brings the cabbie to this fantastically beautiful home, better than anything you can possibly imagine. It's beyond something that we could even conceive of. He runs in, and the celebrity is happy for him, but he's excited to see his home because he knows it'll be even more fantastical. And he's ultimately brought to a 2-bedroom ranch. And when he sees the home, he turns to the man in white and says, "You must be mistaken. Don't you know who I am? The cabbie had something so beautiful, that so far beyond what I could even fathom. But where's the rest of it?" And the man in white says, "I'm only able to build with what you give me. I warned you, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, but rather store up for yourselves treasures in heaven." And I have been storing up for myself treasures on earth, where moths and vermin can destroy and steal. And it's just important to remind myself, because I need these reminders as much as anybody, more probably than anybody, that it's so much more. Winning and losing and all this stuff is like, your life matters, but it's important to store up for yourself treasures in heaven, and to never get too angry at God, or at least to never lose faith in him, no matter how angry you might get, which we'll talk about later. Next, I want to talk about sports betting. Sports betting is for losers. That's what I have written down here. And it's an epidemic. There's a guy, Togi. His real name is like starts with S and S, which I think is funny because my name is Scott Schroeder. I think his name is like Sam something. But he's this personality. He's this very large man. He's incredibly strong. He's on steroids, obviously. And I kind of like him. I don't agree with anything he does, but he's a likable guy. He seems cool, like weirdly kind of down to earth in a way, and I kind of like him. And there's a video here I'm going to play, and if you're not watching, I'll describe it.
I don't even want, I seriously think that might be the most I've ever lost. That was so bad. Oh my God, that was so bad, dude. Oh my God.
He's just sitting there after having lost $1.5 million on a betting casino app. And if you watch the stream beforehand, you could see his eyes like glaze over while he's doing this. And he's no longer a human. I think, I'm not sure what overtook him, but he's no longer a human. He's just sitting there like slack-jawed, drooling, eyes glaze over, and he's just clicking the button. He just needs that next hit of dopamine. And it's treasures on earth. That's what that is. It's treasures on earth because he's just looking for the next high, the next hit of dopamine. All that stuff is treasures on earth. And he's interesting because he's sort of like fundamentally, it's funny that I like him because he's actually sort of every single thing that I disagree with. He's on steroids, so he's putting his looks and stuff above everything. He's a fitness personality. He gambles. I've never understood gambling. I've always lost whenever I went to the casino, like $20. I understand how addictive it could be, but I would never have done something that addictive because if I ever smoked one cigarette, I know I'd get addicted. If I ever started sports betting or gambling, I know I would get addicted. It's why I don't drink alcohol. It's why I don't do any drugs because I just know the second I feel that high, I'll get addicted. And he's like a bro. So he sleeps with women. He's got all these beautiful women around him all the time. He's got he's just like a bro. And he lives a lifestyle that I wholeheartedly disagree with. He just seems a little misguided. He seems like a cool dude though, but he just seems a little misguided. And he's always put his life sort of into material things. And you could see in that video when his eyes just like, you could just see all this stuff, that moment of realization, like what has he done? And I think it's interesting that he's put so much faith and so much stuff into gambling. So much of his happiness is sort of derived from gambling. And I think it's just something to learn, like, don't chase those quick little highs. He cheated on his physique. He took steroids. Like, he cheated. He cheated in life. Cheating, that's the thing about cheating, is that it actually works. Everybody says cheaters never win, and it's actually not true. Cheaters actually win. They win a lot, and they do. They win things on earth. They store for themselves treasures on earth. And doing steroids wins. You will win if you do steroids. That is, it's just a fact. They work. That's the problem with them, is they're exceptionally good and they work. Gambling. Sometimes you might win a ton of money, and that hit every single time you win that money. It's like there's probably not a better feeling on earth. Honestly, that's why I don't do it, because I just know I would get addicted. And I'm not gonna sit here on my high horse, but no, I'm better than that. It's like I'm not. I just know that if I tried it, I would get addicted because I'm stupid. And so he kind of reminds me from my first story that I wrote that wasn't very good. He kind of reminds me of Steve, the guy who just sort of flows through life, not really thinking about the consequences of his actions. And he's got a lot of young men who are following him and supporting him and who like him, and he wants to live that lifestyle. And it's hard for me to sit here and say, like, you're stupid for wanting that, because I get it. I mean, the beautiful women, the money, the cars, the fame, all that stuff. But it's treasures on earth. And you cannot just build for yourself treasures on earth, because eventually you're going to die. Eventually his cheating will catch up to you. It does eventually catch up to you. It just might not be in this life. It might be in the next life. And eventually it will catch up to you. And the heart problems that people get when they go on steroids, I get it. Like, I get why you might want to do it, because it's tempting. Could you imagine just getting really strong, working out a little bit? But that's just not how life works. And there's nothing like that. So if you enter into that, I've always thought, like, you do one thing like that, the rest of it is a cascading effect. And for me, when I eat like crap, when I start eating the sugar and the sweets and all that shit, That is the catalyst for me for failure, is when I allow that stuff into my life. Everything else goes to shit. I put on weight. I stop filming this podcast. It really means a lot to me personally. I really like it. It forces me to be I don't think a better person, but it forces me to be, like, in my opinion, the person that I was made to be. It brings me closer to that. And then I stopped doing it, and I'm putting things above myself and my future and all that stuff. And I think it's easy to do that. And it happens so quick. It's like a month goes by or 2 months goes by. And, at the beginning, I was only putting on a pound or two, whatever. I was 178, I was 179, I was 180, and didn't really catch up to me that fast. I was 180 pounds, and whatever. I have 2 good days, and I'm back to the 170s, and I did that. But then I popped back up to 180, then 181, then 183, then 185. And then one night I stepped on the scale to 192 pounds. And yeah, I'd eaten a lot that night, but like, where the hell did all that weight come from? And it happened slowly, but then all at once. So I got one more story for you. And this one, I wrote this one down. This is something a little different. There's a guy, handsome, smart. He's got a beautiful family. He's got a wife that loves him. He's got the most wonderful 2 little girls. From the outside, he has pretty much everything going on for him. He's bald. Other than the fact that he's bald, he's got pretty much everything going for him. And then one day, it all goes wrong. His basement floods, and he's presented with an issue. Does he confront the issue head on? Or does he look up to the heavens and blame God? He knows what he's supposed to do, which is the most frustrating thing. He's read the literature, yet this guy can't seem to stop making the wrong decisions. He falls back into bad habits. He starts eating like crap to feel good, more treasures on earth. And when that works, because it does make him feel good, he continues to do it. Eventually, he ends up putting on 10 to 12 pounds that he had just literally lost days before. His gym routine ends. He stops going to the gym. He snaps at his wife too quickly. And he becomes a broken light, a broken building. Thankfully, he knows of this fella, let's just call him Jesus Christ. And he begins to read the Bible a little bit more. He prays more, and he struggles to pray. He gets on his knees a couple weeks ago in front of nobody, just himself and God. And he wonders why he's even praying. He's like, why would he even do this? It doesn't even work. It didn't help him out a few months ago. It's not going to help him out now. But he does it. He gets on his knees and he just says, help, please. And then something kind of amazing starts to happen. He starts to get better. He starts to go to the gym again. He starts to eat healthier. He starts to treat his wife the way that she deserves to be treated, like an angel. And slowly but surely, he makes his way, starting to carry that cross again. The final hurdle is filming a podcast that tells others to put their faith in God. And when he felt like he couldn't do that a few months ago. And it's me, obviously. If you didn't get it, it's me. It's not a news story. I'm not the first person to have happened to me what had happened to me. I just failed, and it was just weird. Like, I was just mad. I was mad at God, like, all the time. Like, what the hell? Come on, dude. Like, and you do these things. You don't do these things for certain reasons. Like, you don't give to charity. Like, you don't give to charity for others. But then you start throwing that back into God's face, and you go, I give all this money to charity, and I donate all this stuff to charity, and I film a podcast about you. And you throw that back in his face, and you feel like a dumbass for doing all that stuff. And it's crazy. It's the things that can happen to you I don't know. It was frustrating. It was a bad time in my life. And I'm a very happy person. That's the thing, is like, my faith in Jesus Christ never wavered. It felt like my faith in God wavered, which doesn't make sense. I'm not saying it makes sense, but I think that I'm not through the storm. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, that's way past me. It's not. I'm just trying to do a little bit better each and every day. And here I am trying to do a little bit better. That story, though, is, if it sounds made up or it sounds like you've heard it before, it's because actually that will lead us into the quote of the day, which is from Job chapter 38, verses 1 through 5. This is after, if you don't know the story of Job, he more or less, he's a fantastic Christian. He's like a model citizen. He loves God. He does all this stuff for God. And one day Satan says, let me tempt him, basically. Let me test him. And God allows it to happen. And eventually, his faith in God never wavers, but he gets frustrated. He gets angry. He starts to question, like, why did you allow these boils to be put on me? Why did you kill my kids? Where are my crops? Where's all this bad stuff has happened to me? Where were you? And then God speaks to him. Job chapter 38, starting at verse 1. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm, and he said, who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? And that is like the most humbling verse in the entire Bible to me. The Old Testament and the New Testament are definitely different. It's a different vibe. And the Old Testament is like, obviously my favorite chapter is John. I mean, of course. But the Old Testament is incredible. It's a very beautiful read. And some of the Psalm 69 is like my favorite. It's fantastic, obviously. But this line, the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm and said, who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? At the end of the day, the story of Job is about a man whose faith was kind of tested, and he got frustrated and he fired back at God, but his faith never wavered. And that's the important thing to remember here, is that to have unwavering faith. I think Jameis Winston just said that, to have unwavering faith in the Lord. And that's the important thing. And for me, it's like, the line of who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge has hit me like a ton of bricks, because I started off positive. You saw podcasts like 19 or 20. I was talking about it and I kept talking about it, and I was like trying to convince myself that everything's okay. But then I grew angry and I grew frustrated and I grew mad. And then I said, I'm not doing this podcast. I need a break. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I got to a point where I'm like, I'm a decent guy. Why does this stupid shit keep happening to me? You go through every little thing in your life that's wrong, that's happened to you, that's bad. And you just complain and complain and complain. And the more stuff you complain about, the more stuff there is to complain about. And eventually you start to live a bad life and a really unfulfilling life, and a life that's kind of, in a way, almost not worth living because of how hard you're being on yourself and how you're acting like a loser and not a winner ultimately, and how you're not willing to pick up your cross, because I didn't want to pick up my cross. It felt unfair. Like, I feel like I was carrying my cross. Why did you make it heavier? And it's ultimately to teach you to carry a heavier cross, because you're going to be called to carry a much heavier one in the future, and you need to be prepared. And that's sort of how I've been trying to look at it. And it's hard. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, it's easy. You just put your faith in God and it's so easy. Everything's so easy. I think Jesus says pretty clearly in Mark, he says, this is John. He says, if the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. And then at the end of John, I think it's 14, he says, in this world you have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So just put your faith in him, even if you just don't want to sometimes, because you feel like you were doing that, and why get tested? I thought I was doing everything right. And it's stupid. It's arrogant. And I know it's arrogant of me to think like that, but I was, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I know other people feel like this. So I feel like I'm called to share what happened to me. All right. And now let's get to a fun section where I can pretend like I have all my shit together. The unsolicited advice section. So this unsolicited advice is directly 100% to me. I'm telling myself what I should be doing, and I've already started to do it, but I'm telling myself what I need to continue to do. The first one is to take care of yourself. Brush your teeth before 5 p.m. in the afternoon. Take more showers. Just put on clothes that are clean. Do the things you're supposed to do. Put on deodorant, and just do those basic things. Do the basic things every morning, and then you'll feel a lot better. Trust me, Scott. You'll feel a lot better. Stop acting like a slob. Next, eat right. The food that makes you feel good doesn't taste that good. And the food that makes you feel bad tastes fantastic. And so you just have to understand that you're not doing things for this moment, you're doing things for the future. And obviously that is an extremely large Christian theme, but just a reminder to like, just eat right. Eat right. Like the food now tastes like crap. I get it. It's not as good as like whatever, McDonald's or a Big Mac, a number one, no pickles, no onions with Diet Coke and fries. I haven't had Diet Coke in like 10 months, but still, I would love to have one. But you don't do it for today, you do it for tomorrow. And it's understanding that feeling of in the next 2 hours, 3 hours, you're going to feel good versus wanting to cry because your stomach hurts so bad. Next, go to the gym. This is so obvious. Go to the gym. Take your own advice. You tell people to go to the gym, Scott. Go to the gym. And so obviously I've been going back to the gym. I've been getting my wife to come with me. I think it's fun and it's good for both of us, obviously, to go. And it's great. It's a great example for our kids. And yeah, we went to the gym when I was a kid. This is what we did. And, you know, as the man of the house, I do find myself with this pressure of when I eat like crap, the whole house eats like crap. And if I want the house to eat well and to be healthy, and I want my kids to be healthy, and I don't want them to be eating crappy, junky food, going out to eat, all that stuff, if I don't want them to do that, then I cannot do it because I'm setting the example for them. And so having that has been good. Like carrying that weight on my shoulders has been good. The heavier, I feel like through all this, I realized that the weight can be heavy, but I can handle it. I might slip and fall, but there is somebody there that's going to help pick me up who's already carried the cross, the ultimate cross for all of us. And it's just a good reminder, like go to the gym, set a good example for your family. That's all what I'm trying to do. And it makes it a little easier, I feel like, when I'm trying to do it for my daughters versus for me, because it's easy to sacrifice for them. Like I do it every day. I do it all the time. Do I want to work as much as I work? No, not really. But I do it for them because I love them almost more than anything. And next, stand confidently. Stand with your shoulders back. Don't stand with a little hunch. Make sure you're standing up straight. Right now, I'm probably hunching a little bit because I'm sitting in this chair, a little uncomfy. I don't have a desk here. I got like a box over here on top of a box, on top of a trash can with my laptop on it. That's how the setup is. It's a temporary situation we got in here, but I'm just trying to get this podcast filmed. And so just stand confidently, shoulders back. Just that's what you have to do. So just take care of yourself. I mean, that's ultimately all this comes down to. The unsolicited advice is to just do the things you know you're supposed to be doing. We all know what we're supposed to be doing. We all know we're supposed to eat, be eating right, be kind, be gentle, be loving, go to the gym, stand up straight with your shoulders back, carry that cross, bear that weight. And if you're somebody that is struggling with whatever it is, I know I talk about the porn addiction a lot, and I know I talk about all that stuff. If you're struggling with all that stuff, just understand, like, it's hard, and if you weren't being tested, you wouldn't be, because you're being tested, it means you're worthy of being tested. If you weren't being tested, it wouldn't matter. And it's important to remember that going through your life, because it sometimes in the middle of it, it's like, yeah, I hear what Scott's saying, but it sucks, and I get it. This is a podcast for future me. Honestly, episode 21 might be one that I come back to. So that is ultimately what it is. Write this stuff down. Write down the 10 things or so that you know you need to improve on your life, and just start doing them every day. Just start doing them, 1 or 2 of them, and then eventually the 1 or 2 will become 3 or 4, 3 or 4 become 5 or 6. So thank you for watching and or listening. This has been Scott with the Dear Young Men podcast, and I will see you next week on episode 22. I promise I'll be back. Peace.